Welcome, everybody, on this cloudy, humid Saturday. We're delighted to bring you to your June installment of Carter Conversations. As you will remember, Carter Conversations is a joint venture with Hyattsville Aging in Place, College Park Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and Explorations on Aging, and University Park Helping Hands. And Gateway Arts District, right, Carter, still? Which is Mount Rainier, and we've just added them and are delighted to extend our reach. Um, what we'll do today, I know you all know this, we will, Eric, I don't think mine's questions in the midst, but if you can hold your questions at least till there's a pause or something, we would appreciate that, because you may answer it as we go along. So I think we'll just get started. I'm delighted to introduce Eric Key. I've known Eric for a long time. I have to read this, Eric,
Oh
but
no, no, don't embarrass me now.
no, it's right off your website, so I think it'll be all right. Eric is an art lover. Excuse me, I need the glasses. Oh, gosh. Eric is an art lover, investor and collector who by his own administration can't draw a straight line. I'm with you, I can barely do a stick figure. He came to UMGC in 2008 with more than 35 years of experience as in art administration. Since then, he has more than included more than 200 culturally diverse exhibitions, and he's worked with countless artists, curators, and directors, and expanded and sharpened knowledge in the art field. Since he joined UMUC, the university has added 2,200 individual pieces to its collection, and that's just amazing to me, and has increased the percentage of works on public display. Eric's responsibilities for the overall selection and development of the future has led him to involving young artists as well as the current artist who is 100 years old. Um, so we've shown works for large collections, and he brings art to the community. I think the UMG Art Gallery is the best held secret in the world. You can park free in the garage. You can enter through the Inn and Conference Center. You can see it at your leisure. It really is a gem right in our neighborhood. So Eric's going to talk to us about this art collection, and we certainly welcome you, Eric, and thank you for your time.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you for having me. Um, I promise not to keep you for no more than 5 hours. So if I run a little short, don't blame me because I have a lot to talk about and I enjoy the arts. What I'm going to do is kind of give you a background of the arts program. And then, like we said, at the end, we could talk about, um, I can try to answer any questions that you may have. Uh, as Marian said, I started at UMGC in 2008, where I came from Wichita, Kansas. Well, I was there in Dorothy Land for about 10 years as the director of the Kansas African American Museum. I'm a native of Virginia, born and raised in Smithfield, Virginia. At that time, the ham capital of the world. My family was still there, and I left after I finished my master's from Hampton University and went to Dallas. And I worked there for about 25 years and then migrated to Kansas and now to the University of Maryland Global Campus. There, it was an interesting interview process, but they hired me, so I'm here. The arts program itself started in, I think the first donation was 1978, but the majority of the work did not come until much later, which was around 1986. And it really became as an interest of the First Lady, at that time. The collection that started in 1978 was a donation of Asian prints by Emily Trosper, which we still have, and many of those works are on exhibit as a part of our Asian art collection at the university. Kind of an interesting story. When Bailey Massey became the president in the 80s, his wife Bailey came through the halls of what we know as the Inn and Conference Center, which is much different than what it is now. It was really a very boring environment. It was just a conference center. I remember when I got here, the walls were kind of a mustard green color. It was really dated. But since then, I think in 2009, 2010, we renovated to where we are now, which is a much more inviting environment. Anyway, Bailey Massey walked those hallways, and as the first lady, she took it upon herself to basically say, we have to do something with this building. And the end result was the development of the arts program. She says, I need to reach out to local artists in the community. We need to have some art in this building. From a mere idea and beginning to talk with such people as Herman Merrill, who was on the staff at College Park and who was also an artist, and Gladys Goldstein and a lot of other artists in the community, they started having exhibitions. They started hanging artwork throughout the building, which really transformed that building. Because of her involvement, Massey began to understand the talent of artists that was right here in Maryland, and what I would like to say right here in the DMV, because Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia had it was a magnitude of artists living here. I mean, you had artists, some of the nationally known, like uh, Marianne, you mentioned one of the elders, which is Mr. Joseph Shepard, but you also had Herman Merrill here. You had Sam Gilliam here, Elma Thomas, Lois Jones. All of these artists who are now known on the national circuit was right here in the DMV. So as an idea just to transform the conference center into a welcoming place, the arts program was formed. Um, Out of that, like I said, these are some of the artists that she worked with. Gladys Goldstein, I like to emphasize because Gladys was still living when I came here in 2008, and she was very accepting even of me as a new director. I mean, she invited me to her home. I saw her work. We began to talk about the program in itself. And then in result, she ended up donating almost 200 works from her collection to the program. Herman Merrill, I had a chance to work with his estate, particularly his son and daughter. And as a result of that, we got another 34 works from the estate. And Doris Patz, who was really, really, really a champion and friend of the arts program, she began to start the permanent collection at UMGC. And sometimes I hesitate because when I came here, it was UMUC. Now it's UMGC. Well, what she did is she decided that she would donate a good portion of her personal collection to UMGC. And in doing so, we established the Doris Patz collection of Maryland artists. And she also, which is usually a rare opportunity, she donated at that time about $250,000 to support that collection. And to support that collection means that we could acquire new works to build the collection so it would always be fresh. We could use the funds, the proceeds, the interest for advertising, the care of the collection, and all of that. Most people, when you think about collecting, they really don't give much thought to the care of a collection. But in my world, you have to. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir with most of you, because that care comes with living in your home where your lights are low and the air conditioning is on most of the time, and you're not exposing the work to the direct sunlight. which dries out paint and dries out paint. So you begin to just care for it in those kinds of ways. So we like to use the year 1986 that the arts program was formally formalized. And that's because now we had a real collection here in Adelphi. We had the Asian collection at that point that was over in the Asian division, and it was making its way home to Adelphi to be a part of the campus. Um, let's see, I'm not going to try to read all of this. Well, when I got here, I had a board of directors, and one of their main interests was to make sure that the collection represented the students that we serve. And the students that we serve was a culturally diverse student body. So we wanted to make sure that the collection represent that diversity. So we began to collect all cultural groups, but we had a strong emphasis on collecting art by Maryland artists. Now, I get to it, but I'm gonna say it now. When we decided to collect Maryland artists, we realized we started by adding those works to the Doris Patz collection. And then it became the Doris Patz collection of Maryland artists. But then the question was raised, how do we identify the works that were truly Doris Patz collection and the works are just works that came in by way of donation or acquisition elsewhere, that's elsewise for the collection. So the board decided to establish another collection, and we called that the Maryland Artist Collection. So now we have two collections that are there to represent the art and the artists of Maryland, the Doris Patz Collection and the Maryland Artist Collection. And slow me up if I seem like I'm talking too fast. Like I said, the mission was to turn to adorn, well, Bailey's mission was to adorn the walls in the inner conference center. Our mission as an arts program, and I kind of borderline this arts program really as an art museum, is to care for quality work, care for the collection, and acquire quality works that represent our student body and the best that the artists are producing at the time. It is really a public collection. Um, you basically can come to our building 7 days a week. 9 to 9. That's usually when the lights are on. But sometimes you still have good lighting in the main gallery, even after the 9 p.m. hour. So you really do have access to art almost 24/7. It really became a jewel for visitors because we're dealing with, I hate to use the term dealing with, we had two entities as an arts museum, I'm going to use that term, the arts program, and we had the Marriott Hotel, which is also UMGC's building. And we contracted that out to the Marriott to handle the hotel part. But doing that as a museum and then having an art collection, it poses different questions and different challenges. And over the years, I think we've managed it pretty good. One in which, Marriott has conference center, the big pet peeve in museum world, you don't bring drinks into the gallery, you don't bring food into the gallery, those kinds of things. So we had to make some kind of back up a little bit in order to accommodate the Marriott because they're there to make money. They're there to service the contracts that they have with the university. At the same time, we had a collection. And even when we did the renovation in 2009, 2010, the arts program was at the top of that conversation because it was always intended that the walls throughout the building would serve as gallery space for art. But you can easily get caught in that loop and saying, well, we don't want the art on the wall. Marriott could have said that this is not the look that they wanted, but they came to the arts program, went through our collection, they selected works, and now you see, if you come to the building, even the works that are in the white frames came from and still are a part of the UMGC art collection. And that was kind of the give and take to make sure that we maintain the wall space so that we could show works. At the same time, we could satisfy what the Marriott wanted to do. Um, let's see. Pretty simple, our goal. Um, Pretty much straightforward to create an environment in which the largest possible share of its diverse constituents, including members of the university community and the general public, can study and learn from a direct experience of the works of arts. To affirm the university core values because we are a university and we work with the university and its art department, and to provide educational exhibitions. We have basically five collections at the university. The Asian Art Collection, the Doris Patch Collection, the Maryland Artist Collection, an International Collection, which also include the National, and an Education Collection. I've always kind of talk a little bit about the Education Collection because that's our least popular collection. As a university, the president is always on the go, and he's meeting dignitaries everywhere, and everybody wants to give him a gift. And sometimes that gift is a piece of art. Most of the time, that art does not fit within the collection mission of the arts program. But the education collection allows us to put it there. It also gives us the opportunity to use those works for, sending them into the schools where it's less control, less security, those kinds of things. So really it becomes educational purposes. The Asian art collection consists of work dating back to almost 200 years. We have scrolls, pottery, snuff bottles, ivory, and contemporary works on paper. It's a firm belief that even dealing with historical artifacts, there's still art embodied in those works, particularly when you're talking about the scrolls and the snuff bottles, because the snuff bottles themselves are generally handmade. The snuff bottles are very crafty, they're very artsy, and the whole nine yards. So we look at it as art versus history. Within the Asian art collection, we have the art of China, the Japanese woodblock prints, and a collection of Balinese prints. And I think this is kind of an example of what's in the Japanese art collection. These we acquired from the Han Dynasty. I think about 5 years into my tenure from a collector out of Chicago. And it's interesting, this networking. I had an exhibit of another Chicago artist by the name of MacArthur Binion. Now, it's interesting how this worked. MacArthur came to do his artist talk and be a part of the opening of his exhibition, but he went to our second floor and he saw our Art of China collection. And so he tells me that his mother-in-law was dating a gentleman who had this fabulous Chinese art collection, and he was looking to downsize his collection. And of course, as the director, my ears perked up, eyes open, and said, okay, we need to probably have a conversation. So, long story short, he introduced me to Ivor Nelson, who had at that time agreed to donate quite a few works to the Indianapolis Art Museum, but he had some other works that he was still trying to find homes. And these are examples of the 15 pieces that we got as a part of this relationship building and networking. It came from the Han Dynasty. The Doris Patch collection of Maryland artists. Doris Patch was a patron of Baltimore. Um, she became a friend of the program through Bailey Massey, and she championed for many, many, many years. Even when I got here in 2008, she was one of the first persons that I met at that time. And of course, she carried me to task to see what my brain was like, and wanted to make sure that I was going to continue their hard work over the years. And I must say, before she passed, we had become very close, and she was very pleased. One of the such painting that came that she donated was this Grace Hardigan. Grace Hardigan is now on the national circuit from Baltimore. She's from Baltimore, and a lot of museums are collecting her work as to of today. Gladys Goldstein, Baltimore artist, friend of the program, also a friend of the Doris Patz collection. Ralph McGuire, Baltimore artist, and you kind of reflect on the boat scene. Jack Perlmutter, also Maryland artist, and of course David Driscoll. David taught for many years. He's out of Howard, taught at Howard, and taught at College Park in the arts program. And as a result of his national reputation, they established the David C. Driscoll Center on the College Park campus. But David was also a friend of the UMGC Arts Program, and we were able to get one of his signature work, which is David liked painting pine trees. And this is the one from his property in Maine. We got James Reed, also out of Baltimore. Reed also did the Billie Holiday sculpture that is, I think, is right off of Camden Yard, right off of Martin Luther King in that area. And then, as I mentioned, we had the other collection, the Maryland Artist Collection, which is continuously growing. And it's a collection that, obviously DC, Northern Virginia, and Northern Virginia for us is Richmond on back up to Alexandria, this area, in Maryland. And early on, we did not really define what constitute a Maryland artist, because we thought that a Maryland artist should be anyone who was born, who worked, who has significant ties to Maryland, et cetera. And then we could consider them a Maryland artist. And I know we still use that direction today. There are a lot of artists, a lot of Maryland artists, but what we tried to do is look at the work, research the background of the artist, and just try to get the best of the best, but also knowing that we want artwork to represent our Maryland artists. So I think the Maryland artists became one of our nicks in the art world. We collect Maryland artists. Speaking of that, Selma Oppenheimer, who taught, Joe Holston, who's still a friend of the program, Jill Lyon, one of the early donors of works to the arts program. Tim Davis, who was Northern Virginia, who had a gallery in DC, and most recently died about 3 weeks ago. And of course, the parade, Mr. Shepard. Mr. Shepard, I can't say enough about Mr. Shepard. We built an extension of the building called the Leroy Maris Center for the Art of Joseph Shepard. And when you come to that space in itself, you can see Mr. Shepard's sculpture. Then there is a study center, which you can see some of his drawings. You can see his book collection, as well as we've added to over the years. And you can really just go in there and sit down there. Mr. Shepard taught at MICA for about 10 years, in the 60s, I believe. And he taught anatomy, and he still makes that a part of his practice in the category of realism. And on this coming Sunday, Mr. Shepard is still alive. We are opening his new exhibition, which deals with anatomy, but also we're going to present Mr. Shepard with an honorary doctorate degree on Sunday. So if any of you are available at 3 o'clock, come on down to the university and celebrate with us. Other artists, Rainey Matters, he and his wife had a house. I can't think of the area. I know it's beyond Baltimore, kind of in the hills. And Rainey would always paint neighborhoods, landscapes, flowers. And before he passed, I think he donated about 30 works to the collection. Cy Gresser, who lived right down the street on off of University Boulevard. Chai is a sculptor, and very few people knew of his work. And when I got here, I had a chance to go by and meet with him again, networking, because one of the persons that I've always wanted to meet was Bill Taylor, who was also a sculptor out of Howard. But Bill was in his later years and he moved to Maryland and he was in a nursing home down in Tacoma Park. And so when I went and met with him and talked to him, and I was interested in doing an exhibition of his work, he told me of a good friend of his whom he had worked together at the Corcoran Gallery, which was Cy Gresser. So I ended up going over to Cy Gresser's house, and you know, I something about artists who just create, not interested in selling, not necessarily interested in exhibiting. He just created. He had a small frame, 2-bedroom home, and his studio, he had created a studio on the backside, and he would just chisel and draw. He had stonework everywhere on the property. And so this was one of the pieces we were able to retrieve from outside of his house. And we ended up acquiring, I believe we have 10 pieces by him. And of course, unfortunately, since then, he passed, Bill Taylor passed. A lot of our artists are leaving us. Preston Sampson, one of our contemporary Maryland artists who also lives in Tacoma Park. So the art collection just continues to grow. It really is amazing that we have garnered the support of the artists in the community to a point where they want to do exhibitions. They're calling us to see how to be involved. And when we go and visit, they're willing to donate works to the collection. Of course, we have to select the piece that we want. The International Collection. We've had a lot of conversation about this title because it does include Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia. The general concept of international is usually outside of the United States. But instead, we didn't want to start another collection which would make 6 collections. We just kind of use this as anybody who is not Maryland. Um, so DC, Northern Virginia, California goes into this collection. At some point, maybe the new team, the new director will split it up or just call it Inter/National Collection or something to just let it make a little bit more sense. It is also a growing collection because we want a collection that represents the student body and represent who we are as an educational institution, and we are worldwide. We have Asian division, we have the European division, we now in Africa, we have Hawaii. So we are worldwide. We got our humble beginnings as a program because we grew out of College Park night program. Then the College Park did not want to continue the online learning aspect. It made room for University of Maryland University College as an independent organization. There are, I believe, 13 institutions that fall within the university system of Maryland. College Park is the flagship school. Then you got also the University of Maryland Global Campus, University of Maryland Baltimore. You got Bowie, Coppin. There's 13 Frostburg. There are 13 that falls under the state umbrella, and we happen to be one of those. Where am I? Okay. And these are just examples more of this growing collection that we're in. Let me say this now, if any of you have works that you're interested in parting with to donate, we will certainly be glad to take a look. Another collection that we got, I was very proud to get, was a collection of photographs and prints by Andy Warhol. We worked with the Andy Warhol Foundation, and we ended up getting 140 his Polaroid prints, and we got this collection all but two images. I think it's six in the portfolio, and I think we have four, which was from his endangered species series. Again, we worked with the foundation out of Pittsburgh, and they were looking for homes for some of Andy Warhol's work because he's such a prolific producer of art that they had so much they wanted to find a home. And again, to kind of round this off, the education collection, which I will move right along. What does the art program collect? This is all sweet and, bring fluff. We collect paintings and works on paper, mixed media, sculpture, prints, photograph, the usual thing. In other words, we almost collect almost everything. We look at it. What we don't collect are historical documents because we're not a history institution. We don't collect African masks, for an example, but we do collect contemporary African art, those kinds of things. And again, our stronghold happens to be the Maryland artists, our dedication to our Maryland artists, and continue building our Asian art collection. And it's something I'm missing. These are just, again, sample of the works that we've collected over the years. Herman Merrill, Margot Humphrey, who taught printmaking at College Park, and who also is well documented in books, etc. Albert Al Butts is an interesting young artist at the time. He was working for the Smithsonian, and he was in security. He was not doing printing or conservatory work. He was he was in security, but he always picked up the pen and paint, and he was painting. And so we got a chance to see his portfolio, and we ended up picking out this piece, which is ballpoint pen on board. And then you have people like Patrick Craig, who also taught at College Park. Another one of our locals, Richard Dana, who was really in his career was Russia, and he was I don't want to say cybersecurity, but he was pretty much an interpreter of Russian for the embassy, and just painted and was an artist on the side. But when you look at his work, wonderful work. So we had to make sure he was represented in the collection. You got Patricia Forrester, realist painter. Another artist in our back door that we didn't know much about was Palmer Hayden, who really was on the national circuit. He was from Whitewater, Virginia, but in the early 30s, he was represented by the Harmon Foundation. And at that time, he was living in Paris, but yet producing art. But in almost every art history book, his name is mentioned. He's mentioned from an African-American perspective because he was a trained artist. He could paint realism, but also he did artwork that would borderline called outsider art or folk art. And in the 30s, he did a series of work that really was kind of the art community took it very negative because it was a stereotype of African American, big lips, red, those kinds of things, almost borderline. The images look like monkeys. But when we started doing research about why he produced those kind of work, we understood sometimes artists produce things that were negative just to get a positive response from his audience. He did the GI Bride. We call a woman with cat, and we believe it's his wife at the time, because when I became aware of him, he still had cats or living with cats, but his wife had passed. And then contemporary works, Ellen Hill, do 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 do. And last but not least, we have Jacob Lawrence. Jacob Lawrence is another one of those artists that's been on the national circuit, well documented in terms of books and prints and exhibitions. Smithsonian, everybody has done it, for the most part, have done or included his works in exhibitions. And we were fortunate enough to get a couple of the pieces from his Toussaint Overture series, which is a series about 13 prints that he pulled with Lou Stovall out of DC. And it really documents that, really trying to tell the story of the Haitian Revolution. And this piece is actually called The Opener. And then the series starts with the birth of Toussaint. Then you have the strategy, which people are sitting around the table. And then you have the opener that kind of signifies a landing of the British in the Caribbean. And then you have Fortilia. That's the one where the houses are burning, so the war is going on, and it just goes on from there. And there's 13 pieces in the series. We're hoping one day we'll get all 13 to tell that story. But we've been on this bandwagon to collect meaningful artwork for the collection that tells the story from every angle, every breath. That's the slides. I want to go, I didn't mention it, but at College Park in the Inn and Conference Center, we have 7 permanent exhibition spaces. And in those exhibition spaces, you can see work by Gladys Goldstein, which is off the gallery, off of the main gallery on the lower level. Then you have the first floor, you have the Herman Merrill collection on one side, and you have the Japanese woodblock prints on the other side. And then on the second floor, you have Selma Oppenheimer on the left, you have William Anderson on that side, and on the right side, you have the work from the Art of China collection. Also on the first floor, back to the first floor, beyond the Merrill, we have works from the Maryland Artist Collection, which includes Doris Patz and the Maryland Artist Collection. And then on the third floor, we have just sample works from the photograph collection. And then on the left side, we have a very diverse group of artists, and that's the executive floor. If you go across to the Marriott building on the first floor, we have about 50 works over there that represents works from our print collection. And they were already mentioned the Joseph Shepard. And as a staff of 4 people, it keeps us busy. Is that pretty much, Marianne?
That's fantastic, Eric. You were just mentioning your permanent exhibitions, but I've also been really impressed with the temporary exhibitions that y'all stage. And wonder if you could just sort of give us an idea of how frequently do you have new exhibitions go up, and can you give us an idea of what's on the walls now?
Yes. What we call the main arts program gallery, we do about 5 exhibitions in that space, 4 to 5 exhibitions in that space yearly. Every 2.5 months, we're changing exhibitions, which sometimes we have to adjust. For the past 4 or 5 years, we've done what we call the Maryland Biennial Regional Druid Art Exhibition, which includes Northern Virginia, Maryland, and DC artists can submit works for that exhibition. We hired jurors, sometimes artists, art administrators, to serve as the juror, and they make the selection, and we give out cash awards to those artists. We are a firm believer to support the artists in our community. Sometimes when we first started I would call the BMRE, we would select a winner, and the winner would have the option of having an exhibition in the main gallery. And then in doing so, they would get the full color catalog, and we send out the invitation, and they get to come and do the artist talk and talk about their works. And then we realized that some of them just wanted some money to survive and to get more art supplies. I'm gonna look at it as to get more art supplies, but so we turned it into a cash awards where the top prize is $5,000, $2,500, and $1,000. Then we realized that there is another group of artists that are not considered adult, or in our world, adult learners, and those are our high school students. But we also realized in high school that the arts program are the least supportive programs in school. Everybody knows how important the arts are, but we also know the arts are always the first thing to get a budget cut. So what we decided to do is do the Maryland High School Juried Art Competition. And it goes to all the information goes to 200, I think it's 226 schools throughout the state of Maryland. If there is not an arts program in that school and there's an artist that attends that school, all he has to do is to be represented by a student in order to participate. And the awards are, again, 5,000, 2,500, and 1,000. But what we decided to do in this case is we split the awards between the student and the arts program in that school. So we just finished.
Sorry, go ahead.
We just finished what's in the gallery now is the BMRE. And then we're doing the rest of 2027 is going to be dedicated to textile shows. So the first one is going to be a contemporary textile show with Judith Connect and Virginia Sparry. And then we're going to do Sheila Kreider. And then we got to do the high school exhibition again in the spring, then followed by textile artists out of Atlanta, Georgia. These are not quilts, because most of us are used to quilts in terms of exhibition. We decided to do something a little different. Other artists who are doing something else in textile, using the medium of textile. So that's what we're going to do in that gallery. At the same time that we're doing the rotation in the main program gallery, we also curate an exhibition over at the federal courthouse every year in Greenbelt. Sometimes it's works from the UMGC collection. Other times there are other artists in the community we work with to showcase their works. And that really what I consider a very unusual gallery space, but also a space that I think the visitors need that kind of exposure. So we've been doing that for the past 10 years. To a point where now we have art in the chancellor's home in Baltimore, the comptroller home, the office in Baltimore and in Annapolis. There's somewhere, and Senator Alsabrook downtown in DC have work from the UMGC collection. And thanks to our president, who goes out all the time, and he loves the arts, so he's always mentioning the arts. Next thing we know, we're getting a phone call. Somebody wants some art for this space. Different challenges, but well worth the investment to get the work out. What we've tried to do of those almost 3,000 works, we try to keep a good majority of the work on display somewhere. Now, I've only mentioned the Inn and Conference Center, but we do have the administration building next door, which it's not open to the public, but there's art on all 4 floors of that building. It's amazing. It's a lot of artwork. That's the what we call the rotating gallery. And we keep that one, try to keep it as fresh and exciting as possible, given, our budget and the staff. It's a lot of work, but we get it done. And when we do the exhibitions, we produce, I meant to put some examples of the catalog in my presentation, but it's a full color catalog. We contract with writers in the art world, art historians, to write about those artists. because that the writing is going to outlive all of us, and it's important for the artists for them to be able to have that publication that tells their story. Some of the worst people who they're like me. I can't say worst people. I do not enjoy talking about myself and what I do. And a lot of artists, they just like to create. So it's up to us as art administrators is to pull that information out. Why? Where were you born? Tell us something about your parents. Were they supportive of your career? How did you get into the art? What are you trying to say with your art? It's up to us to pull this information out of them and write about it so they can have it in print. It's amazing how the environment um, marches or travels show up in the artwork. And I came from a background where we didn't do a lot of field trips in elementary nor high school. So my exposure was really learning and living through the eyes of artists through their works. So when I did go to museum, oh, that's Morocco. That looks, that's interesting. I want to go there someday. That's Africa. I want to go there someday. Oh, this is Europe. That's the Eiffel Tower. It'd be nice to see that. So, you begin to learn from these things. And then there come technique. How did they do it? That's really kind of fuel what we do as a program, because we always asking that question. There are a lot of artists who produce and a lot of work. There's a lot of work, but some of the most intriguing work is what makes it into our rotating space. Okay. Told you I'm gonna be quiet. Did I use up my 5 hours yet?
Eric, I just wanted to say you left yourself out of this. Often with the artists and the receptions, Eric interviews the artist. And that to somebody like me who is not, I love it, but I don't really know what I'm seeing or what they're trying to express. Eric can elicit that from the artists, and that's also fascinating. The catalogs alone are worth a visit to the galleries. And I have found, when you mentioned the international clientele, I drag everybody that comes to visit with me to the galleries, because it's fascinating, and you can have a lovely lunch at the Common and spend the day, really. It's just been a treat in our backyard. And I just wanted to add, as a real arts person, for both UMGC and College Park, whose emphasis is so much on STEM and engineering and that sort of thing. Both presidents have just been wonderful, I think, in supporting the arts. Dr. Fowler is at everything you do, it seems. And so I just want to commend you for keeping the arts front and center. It is the basis of our cultures, after all. And I can't encourage you enough, the people enough, to go to look at the collection. To intrigue you, I don't know that we still have it, but I've been a Joseph Shepard fan since I learned about him. My favorite is, Eric, and if you can work on getting this donated, is the one that he did in Italy of the flower shop. The great big one that, as you entered his gallery, was there for years.
It's called Rita de Floral. Rita de
Okay.
Floral.
Should I talk to him about that tomorrow?
I think well, we have an agreement. Of course, Mr. Shepard, he lives off the sale of his artwork, but our agreement is when everything goes to his estate, then everything comes to UMGC. We
Wow.
do have some beautiful florals already, but we don't have that one. And of course, that's named after his wife. So that, I can see why he's holding on to it. And Rita will be there tomorrow.
Oh, right, great. As Eric mentioned earlier, and just to remind you, these art exhibits are just fabulous. Free parking, lovely reception, and it would be well worth your time tomorrow if you have time to go to this Shepherd one in particular from 3 to 5, and then you could acquaint yourself with everything, with a lot of things in the gallery. In fact, I didn't realize there was stuff in the Marriott, so I need to cross the bricks and check that out.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yes. Like I said, we try to make use of all the wall space and not have a lot in storage.
Little extra wall space over here. Not quite enough for the Joseph Shepherd size stuff, but and I'm glad you mentioned it because I think the juried exhibition with the high school students is absolutely amazing. These kids are just so talented, and they're just glowing to be represented, and they're there to talk about their art, and that's really a delightful exhibit as well.
A full catalog to document their participation. And
Yeah,
if they're high school, because we do it every other year, if they're
yeah,
seniors, then they can use that catalog as a part of their graduating portfolio.
yep, that's terrific.
And I'll just say I did throw into the chat links to the information about tomorrow's reception, link to digital versions of some of the exhibition catalogs, and then also a link to the online collection database, so people can use that to look at some of the art that's there. In case you aren't able to get down to the building in Adelphi.
Previous catalogs on our website, they are ADA compliant, so it's just giving people access to not only the current but the past of what we've done, and keeping people informed. And a lot of, like I said, we are University Arts Program. We may change it to museum very soon. We did not a selling institution. We don't sell artwork, but we always make sure that our audience know who the artists are, so that they can talk to them directly. Because artists do have to pay their electric bill, and we know that. But we don't take any percentage or nothing. Just go to them, do it. We're interested in just showcasing the works.
Eric, I don't know if I made this up, but I thought I had heard that UMGC had the largest collection of Maryland artists in the state.
We want to say that, but we haven't proven it, so we kind of shy away from it.
Okay,
But we do think that we're continuously working to build the Maryland artists and be the home for Maryland artists. And I would, if not the largest, we're one of the largest. I don't know of any other institution, let alone institution in Maryland, that has such a large collection of Maryland artists. I
well,
could,
it's
so,
amazing. Go ahead.
so as much as I want to use the largest, I want to wait till I can prove it.
Well, I'll keep misquoting and I won't, that'll be fine. But it is amazing how fortunate we are just in the Route 1 corridor from Mount Rainier up, how many artists of different modes that we have. It's just astounding, and quite lovely for us Marylanders. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? David, do you use your hand up? Yeah. Unmute yourself, David.
Okay, I've unmuted myself. I know that you've got something in your collection by David Driscoll. Is there any structured continuing relationship with the Driscoll Center in your program?
Yes, we are partners in a lot of things. And we still keep the door open to work with his family.
Good. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to say that today on Next Door, someone asked and inquired what museums are around the area, and they're looking for people. So I will definitely go back and put UMUC in there for them. They should find out about you. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Also,
appreciate that.
am I correct that David Brosh had a showing? Does that name sound familiar? He's a local artist here.
Not since I've been there.
Okay, I thought he had something recently. Maybe it was somewhere else.
Okay. Tell me that last name again.
Brosh, Brosch.
Oh, David. He was in our not in this show, but in one of our BMREs.
Uh-huh.
He participated. Yes.
Right.
Oh, it makes sense.
Well, Eric, this was just fabulous. Thank you so very much. We can let you go early and then you can prepare for the reception tomorrow. But it's just fascinating. And I had no idea that we had stuff going back to the Han Dynasty and beyond that. I mean, that's just amazing. Terrific.
You know, it's interesting. We want to get the word out. We want people to come, but the flip side, well, I shouldn't say that. I can really say because we're such an open public institution, you try to keep certain, how should I say it, certain information close to your chest. Like we don't talk about values. We just say what we have by this artist, the title of this work, that kind of thing. Because I would hate to walk in on Monday morning and something's not where it's supposed to be. But you know what? Now that I mentioned, I don't have to worry about it because we have security. We have cameras everywhere. We got security walking around, but it's still a very public institution. We've had guests who stay at the hotel who can't sleep at 11 o'clock at night, come down from their guest room, roam the halls, looking at artwork. And some conferences have literally come back to use the Marriott and the conference center because of the art.
That's amazing. I am certainly glad to hear that because the freedom of to walk in, walk around, I'm thinking, the cameras are very discreet, but it just, you could go right out that back door into the parking lot with something tucked under your arm. So I'm glad to hear the security is tight.
Oh, yes.
Good, good.
Well, it also helps us to attract national names that are so used to dealing with museums and dealing with institutions that have this layer of security already in place, and that we can, do an exhibition of the works of Jacob Lawrence, or we can do an exhibition of Basquiat. And those institutions that have the work are sure that we can care for and we can secure the work. So it helps us out in the long run.
Maybe you could provide a little advice to the Louvre.
Yep.
I was recently in Paris, and that's now part of the tour. Is the window of the theft? So, goodness.
Well, as I said, knock on wood, somebody who wants to steal is going to find a way. So you do your 99.9%, and it's just that 0.01 that slides in under the radar. So all you can do your best, even at the Smithsonian, you just do your best. And the Louvre, you just do your best.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I thank you. Hopefully you'll come out and visit us. And if you're not on the mailing list, just drop us a line. You can contact me via email at eric.key@umgc.edu. Give me your address and telephone number, and we'll put you on the mailing list. And thank you for the opportunity.
You, Eric, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. And I'll just let everybody know that, we continue to do quarter conversations monthly. In July, we're going to have a presentation on Qigong, which is a gentle martial art exercise relaxation technique. In August, we have a presentation about Welcome Home Neighbor, which is a local project helping people with resettlement. In September, we have a session on planning your spring garden, and you need to do that by starting in the fall. October, we're going to be looking at having your home on a historic house tour. And then in November, we have a University of Maryland astronomer talking about the Small Bodies Node project at the University of Maryland, which is part of the NASA Planetary Data System. So hopefully you'll find those interesting. And
just wanted to add to the November thing, although
yes.
she's a cometologist, if that's a word, but
Okay.
she's also, it is the anniversary of the Voyager, and Voyager it'll be their 10th anniversary, and it will be the first time, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but the first time that we have gone beyond. This is now the farthest out we have ever been. So she will touch on that, but she's not an expert in that, but she did say she would address it. And I think that too would be fascinating. So sorry for the interruption.
No, it's great. And so yeah, thank you all for coming, and we will be getting the video version of this out. Probably will be after the 4th before it gets sent out to you, but it'll be on the lookout for it.